Hey everybody, it's me, Jay Light. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Blockbusting. Just a couple quick updates before we get into this week's episode. First of all, starting this week, I'm going to be releasing 2 episodes every week. Got new episodes dropping Mondays and Fridays from here on out. A lot of really great episodes coming up soon. Really excited for you all to hear some of these hot takes that some people have. Speaking of hot takes, this week we got Anna Valenzuela talking about Inglourious Basterds. The audio, just a heads up, a little off. We had some problems with the board. Still a great episode. You probably won't notice a whole lot of difference other than it maybe sounds a little underwater. So maybe listen to this episode while you're swimming or scuba diving or other things you can do underwater. Hunting sharks. That sounds like fun, doesn't it? They make movies about those. Anyway, enjoy this week's episode. Leave a rating on iTunes. And let's knock down some Game of Thrones and Westworld recap podcast. Shall we? Enjoy.
Let me tell you something. Bustin' makes me feel good.
Hold on, turn a little bit, to the camera a little bit.
Hi, camera. I look like a drag queen. I just came from a photo shoot.
Welcome to Blockbusting.
Hi.
This is a podcast where we love to hate movies.
Yes. This is going to be a controversial one. I'm going in hard.
We've had some controversial takes lately. The other voice you hear is my guest, Anna Valenzuela.
Hi.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Jay Light.
Anna is one of my favorite comedy folks. Longtime comedy pal. And she has picked a movie that I don't get it. I don't get why you hate it. And that movie is Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah, I hate it.
What's your deal?
From the first, so when I first watched it, I did not watch it in the theater, and I want to go on record and say I'm a Tarantino fan, but I am a Four Rooms Tarantino fan. I am like an early Tarantino fan where I like the weird, like, avant-garde, uncomfortable shit that he did. And so Inglourious Basterds, from the first, like, what is it, a 10, 12-minute monologue at the up top?
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember pausing it and turning to my partner at the time and saying, this movie is already bothering me. It was something about the self-indulgent take, like I'm such a good writer that I'm going to spend 12 minutes on a character that is just evil two-dimensionally at this point. Like, and that actor is incredible, and you can tell he's incredible, but the character's not written three-dimensionally. He's just a bad guy. And it bothered me right up top. I was just like, no, I can't do it. This is just a bad guy. And that's just a lady. Like, if you think about it, like, from a screenwriting perspective, like when you read Save the Cat or whatever, the cat's just under the floorboards. Great. That's like the most literal interpretation of screenwriting. And it just, for some reason, and this is before I had ever read any of those books, had any interest in entertainment, I was just watching that movie and I was like, nope, not for me. And I watched the whole thing. Don't get me wrong, I watched the whole thing, I gave it a go. But I couldn't, from up top all the way through, it seemed like Inglourious Basterds is a collection of fantastic scenes that don't quite make one movie.
Interesting.
But it's also Brad Pitt at his absolute douchiest. Like, at his, like, here's what happened. Brad Pitt played Tyler Durden and never stopped playing Tyler Durden. And you can really see it in that movie. You're just like, oh, okay, you're just going to be this guy forever. Thanks, same haircut, love it.
Now, hold on, I'm going to refute that right up.
Okay.
Have you seen Tree of Life?
No.
He's not that in Tree of Life.
Is that just like him? Oh, no, that's, what, I thought that was the Leonardo DiCaprio with Kate Blanchett, just the sad relationship movie.
Revolutionary Road.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
What's Tree of Life? I felt like that was another sad, it is a sad, it's a sad movie. It's shot in the same sepia tone filter that both of those films use.
It's more of it's a Terrence Malick movie.
Okay.
Terrence Malick, are you familiar with his work at all?
I mean,
refresh
me.
He's a guy that basically his whole filmmaking style involves a lot of shots of like landscapes and stuff that is layered with dialogue or narration over it.
Did he direct Capote?
No.
But that does that. I love that
is-
film. That's one of my
Who
favorites.
directed? I feel like Bennett Miller might have directed Capote.
I do love a landscape narration situation.
You would probably really dig.
Yeah.
Is it Bennett Miller? It is Bennett Miller. Bennett Miller, director of Foxcatcher and Moneyball. So if hold on,
We're going down a rabbit hole. I will rabbit hole the shit out of any podcast.
Tree of Life is one of my favorite. Tree of Life is one of my favorite movies, and it's one of those movies that's like it's an art movie with a capital A, right?
Okay.
And it's a movie that's it's about
I'm there for it.
the fight between essentially nature and nurture.
Okay.
And God, I'm gonna have to pull this up right now so I can get the wording of it right. But the whole premise of the movie is that it stars. What's the word? Come on. Where are we
Brad
at?
Pitt's in it, not playing himself.
Brad Pitt is the dad, and Jessica Chastain is the mom. And it's about the path of grace or the path of nature.
Okay.
And the mom is the embodiment of grace, and the dad is embodiment of nature.
Okay.
And nature is kind of brutal sometimes.
Yeah.
And grace is obviously more, not brutal by the nature of the name.
And so what you're saying is...
what I'm saying is Brad Pitt plays like a regular, like he's a normal, he's not douchey, but he's sort of like, he's like a dad who's like, God, what's the best word for it? He's a 50s dad.
Can I ask you, does he like slick his hair back and cock his head to a perfect 45 and then put his arms at his waist at any point?
No.
Because I feel like that is...
But he does walk down a hallway with his arms at his waist.
Brad Pitt has like 5 mannerisms, and half of them are bro. Like it's just this funny I'm a cheeky bro.
Well, it kind of plays in. Okay, back to Inglourious Basterds. If you haven't seen it for whatever reason, just a quick refresher for you. Inglourious Basterds is a 2009 war film written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, starring Brad Pitt, Christoph Waltz, Michael Fassbender, Eli Roth, Diane Kruger, Melanie Laurent. The film tells the alternate history story of 2 plots to assassinate Nazi Germany's leadership, one planned by Shoshana Dreyfus, a young French-Jewish cinema proprietor, the other by a team of Jewish-American soldiers led by First Lieutenant Aldo Raine. This movie is highly critically acclaimed, nominated for 8 Academy Awards. Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay nominations.
Who else was nominated that year?
For all the things?
Yeah, I feel like the selections might have been cuckoo bananas. And also the Academy, not to throw shade, but let's be honest. The Academy gave the Best Picture award to Patton the same year that MASH was nominated. MASH is arguably it's I can't. It's
this
a much
year,
better film.
This year they gave it to The Shape of Water when Dunkirk, Call Me by Your Name, and Get Out and Phantom Thread were all nominated.
I know
they all deserve to win way over Shape of Water.
Who do you feel like should have won
this year?
Yeah,
Get Out. Or
Me
Dunkirk.
too.
I think Dunkirk is a better movie than Get Out, but I think that Get Out should have won.
I think Get Out is an important movie.
Get Out is it's a movie that it completely changed the landscape of horror film in a way that it's like now Jordan Peele went from being a comedy icon to now being a horror filmmaking icon with Get Out.
I feel like every comedian has that in them. I was doing a comedy sketch. It was like a murdery spoof. And at one point, they just decided to shoot me dying for 20 minutes.
Uh-huh. And
it turned so dark so quick. And it was so much fun. They were like, this is for a completely different shot, but you die so beautifully on camera. Like, it was so much fun. But I actually think horror's been moving in that direction over time, just quietly. Because people, if you're into horror, you've noticed it moving in that direction for a while. So have you seen Heredity yet?
Yeah, it's my favorite movie of the year.
Holy shit. What a movie.
Great movie.
What a beautiful movie.
So here's what was nominated. And so this famously is the year right after The Dark Knight and WALL-E are snubbed by the Oscars. Very famous year.
And WALL-E, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Both of these movies are some of my favorites.
Incredible.
But both of them led to the argument that Best Picture should have a wider scope of nominees.
Right.
The Academy took that to believe, they took that to believe that they needed to
expand the number of nominees instead of changing the way that they looked at what got nominated for Best
Right.
Picture. So this is the first year that they have 10 nominees for Best Picture, is 2009, when Inglourious Basterds is nominated.
BTW, I cannot wait till they try to figure out how to cram Sorry to Bother You and Heredity in the next group.
Hereditary definitely should get nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards. Sorry to Bother You, I don't know if it'll make the Best Picture cut, but I really enjoyed it, and I think it's going to get nominated for a boatload of things.
So Stuart and I saw it, and I said to it, this is the best movie I've ever seen, and he said that was the most uncomfortable I've ever been in a movie. And that's how you know how powerful that movie is.
I haven't laughed harder at that movie in a long time. Anyway, you were queen of tangents. So this movie also nominated against Up in the Air, Up, A Serious Man, Precious, based on the novel Pushed by Sapphire, and Education, District 9, The Blind Side, Avatar, and the winner that year, The Hurt Locker.
What a weird collection of movies.
It's a very strange collection of movies.
What a weird, because Hurt Locker's great. District 9 made me weep in the first 20 minutes.
Is fantastic and Charlton Copley should have gotten Best Actor for District 9.
Oh, so good.
Easy. Up and Up in the Air both made their way in there. Comedies that have an element of heart to them.
Yes.
You've got your typical British movie in Education making its way in there.
I don't even remember what that was about.
You've got Lee Daniels' breakout movie Precious. And you have The Blind Side and Avatar, which are the populist choices of that year.
I want to audibly roll my eyes at Avatar. Hold on. Okay, that's it.
Is Avatar worse than Inglourious Basterds to you?
Yeah.
Good.
I don't care for it.
Thank God.
I don't care for it. I don't care for it.
So, Inglourious Basterds, crazy critically acclaimed. And especially Christoph Waltz, who is basically, this is his breakout English speaking movie role, very well known in Germany, and he won Best Actor at Cannes. He won the Best Supporting Actor award at basically every award show that you can win it at.
Sure, a lot of people are wrong. So no, he's great. He's fantastic. But
so, what do you think this movie? What is the problem that you have with this movie? Is it in the way that it's written and directed as a Quentin Tarantino fan?
Yes, it's primarily the way it's written and directed. And trust me, I'm there for Quentin Tarantino movies, but I think Tarantino falls in two categories. He does very interesting dialogue movies, or he does shocking violence for the sake of shocking ultra violence. And I appreciate both of those things for what they are. However, I felt like Inglourious Basterds definitely goes in that direction. And then it swings back into these strange tangents and monologues, just like I am on a podcast, just like strange tangents and monologues that perhaps don't need to be there. I remember specifically there's a scene, I think it's a scalping scene with Brad Pitt. I have a lot of problems.
Which I do think, I think given the kind of role he's playing in this movie, being real bro-y and douchey lends itself to that character.
I'm sure it does. I think he could have done that character in a different way. The broiness of it really takes me out of the World War II-ness of it. I was like, okay, so now you're this guy from like 2004. You're like a guy at Huntington Beach. You're like one of them racist skinheads at Huntington Beach, but except for you're Jewish, but except for you're going against the Nazis. I'm very confused right now. It was a very and I appreciate that he made a strong choice and a weird choice, but it really took me out of the time, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense.
Is it? And is that movie a war movie, a revenge movie? What is it? What's happening?
Well, it's both. It's really more of a... I was literally just talking outside with Stuart about Quentin Tarantino as a director before you came in.
Oh, really?
Because we were talking about how you're coming down to come be the guest today for the show. And Tarantino, my argument for Tarantino is that he is the most well-known exploitation filmmaker working today.
He is an imitation artist. He is so good at copying, and no one's not known this. I am not the first person to say this. He is so good at copying the film techniques of other directors, specifically Japanese film directors. So, like anything, Akira Kurosawa, the director of there's this little film called Lady Snowblood, which he directly said he stole from Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, which are two of my favorite movies. Mm-hmm. Like, I absolutely love those movies because it's an exploration of motherhood that happens to be very violent.
Right.
I really enjoy those movies. But something about Inglourious Basterds, I guess what I wanted was the emotional experience, because I think Kill Bill was just before that, right?
Yes.
I wanted that. I wanted that emotional experience out of it. And what I got was a lot of people saying, this is who I am, this is what we're doing, also a weird film twist at the end, goodbye.
Right.
And I was like, what is happening?
Well, it's not a movie that's got a lot of heart to it. That's the thing.
I need a heart.
There's
I need a Uma Thurman wiggling her toe.
I think the thing with this movie is that it's Tarantino doing his most what's the right word for it? I'm gonna go with a blockbustery kind of movie. Where it's his biggest crowd pleaser. It's his movie that he has made to appeal to a wide audience for kind of the first time in his career.
And what I live for in Tarantino is Jackie Brown. Like something that's very specific about a part of LA that like only I know about. You know what I mean? Like I want something that's very niche and special, you know, boutique-y out of him.
Right.
And I know that after Inglourious Basterds, he's kind of never gone back. It's sort of been in that direction the entire time. It's these like big blockbuster revenge films, and I live for a revenge film. But I do like I guess that's what it is. I enjoy boutique Tarantino.
Well, that's the thing I'm really interested to see with what he does with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, that'll be fascinating.
That's going to be really interesting because it does seem like it's kind of going back to old school Tarantino, where it's going to be very centrally focused on an event in a way that is not going to be glorifying stuff and doing it in sort of that exploitation filmmaking-y kind of style that Django has, that Inglourious Basterds has. That Kill Bill has.
I love a genre film with a point. So I like it when you take a satire like Sorry to Bother You, and you take the genre and you turn it into a spear and you just throw it at the audience.
Right.
I love that. I love that idea of taking a revenge movie like Kill Bill and just basically throwing this beautiful feminist spear right at the audience. I love what he did there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you're going to do a revenge film just for the sake of revenge, I think it almost kind of propagates this sort of like, I don't want to say toxic masculinity, but there's just definitely this reactionary thing happening in the world where like one side goes, I have a strong feeling, and then the other side goes, well, I'm reacting to that feeling, and nobody's really having a conversation.
Right.
And when that's expressing itself in art and people are celebrating it blindly, it's concerning.
Well, the thing is, this movie does exist because it is a movie with split timelines that really only exist in divergent parallels. They're not really happening at the same. Until the very end when everything kind of comes together.
Right.
But the characters who you're following are very different types of character, and there's no real. There's definitely a reason why the most compelling character in the movie is the villain of the movie. And not somebody who you identify with on a level of wanting them to succeed. Which again, that's where you get a great villain, and that's why Hans Landa is such a great villain. Is because you are compelled to watch him. He's charismatic.
Right.
There's a level of understanding of what he believes, even though you definitely don't agree with it.
Question.
And ask away.
A question. Do you feel like it was the actor that made that character? Or do you feel like if you were to put kind of more of a blank slate like actor in there, somebody who maybe won't go as evil, not go as dark, not do take as many interesting choices and risks that he took? Because I remember my favorite thing about him was his silent sort of exposition in that character when he was just sort of doing something and they would let him kind of bring life to a character that I didn't feel like was on the page. He didn't have as much life as the actor brought to it.
Yes.
But do you, I just totally steered the question. I didn't want to do that. Do you feel like that character may be played by, who's a little more, who would, do you feel like that?
I'm saying John Slattery's not going to do as good job of that role as Christoph Waltz is going to do with that role.
Yeah.
Or John Hamm.
Any Johns.
Let's go with all the
Any
Johns.
Johns. Any Johns.
John Cusack, definitely not going to do as good of a job.
Kind of exactly. Do you feel like that character could have stood on its own on the paper, or it needed somebody to really paint it to life?
I do think it could have stood on its own, but I don't think it would have helped the movie become as acclaimed as it has been were it somebody different than Christoph Waltz playing
True.
it. I can't imagine anybody doing as good of a job as he did. He made that role his own, and he is the reason, more so than Tarantino's directing or writing on this movie, which I do think are still pretty solid. I'm of the opinion that even a bad Tarantino movie is still a pretty great fucking movie in general. But
I can agree with that.
I
Sure.
think that it could. I think that I think that the character was written in a compelling way, and I think that the way that he was played added so many more layers than there were on the page. Which you make a great point in that he is pretty much a two-dimensional cardboard cutout villain.
Right, and I love a villain with some depth. I really do.
The depth is not there on the page.
No, and I immediately caught that. I was like, ugh, because you haven't really gotten to know the character at the beginning of the movie, so you're just experiencing him be evil, right?
And I don't think in a genre movie that matters as much, which is why I don't disregard this movie as much as you do. I think you can get away with having a villain be flat in a genre movie more than you can in a typical like awards Oscar bait kind of movie.
But you don't want him to be the opening act.
I think that if he's the opening act because Hans Landa, as played by Christoph Waltz, is compelling enough to watch for that.
But
time.
that's the thing. That's where I have conflict, because I'm like, oh, you got away with it. Like, yeah, that's what it is. If it had been anybody else, that first 10 minutes, everybody would have just like started a riot because it would have been a bad movie. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's sort of like he cheats by in that first scene.
I think it's an impressive bit of filmmaking that is how the movie came out. I wonder what if it was John Hamm playing
John Hamm. Oh, John
I mean,
Hamm.
he's the top John that we're going
Top
with
Johns.
out of the Johns that I named.
I was gonna name like a Colin Farrell or something.
Colin Farrell, Colin Firth. We got a couple Collins we can throw
a
into.
Colin or a John.
Colin or a John.
Colin or
So if we had a Colin or a John playing this role,
right,
this is not the first scene of the movie.
No.
Guarantee it.
Mm-mm.
Except maybe Colin Firth?
Colin Firth, for sure.
Potentially.
Yeah.
He's the closest out of the Collins and the Johns that's going to make this work.
Yeah.
But
I would also go for a John Lithgow.
ooh,
I know that's a completely different
John.
director. Talk about a John. I feel like that's the John who could have pulled it off.
What about a Nicholas?
Not a Cage.
I think Cage could have done a great job. Have Nicholas Cage and Quentin Tarantino haven't worked together, have they?
Yeah, because no. I think I do want to see a Nicolas Cage Quentin Tarantino movie.
I really want to see that.
But
now.
I want it to be like when Jean-Claude Van Damme just basically did a movie about his life.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be like that. I want it to be like a look at this caricature or like a Birdman. I love Birdman. I know people hate Birdman.
I think Birdman's great.
I live for Birdman. That's like one of my favorites.
So the thing with this movie, again, this is a question I've been dying to ask. You have espoused yourself on the show already as a big Quentin Tarantino fan.
Yes.
What is your ranking of Tarantino's filmography?
Oh, that's interesting. I do have to say, Inglourious Basterds broke my heart so much that I didn't see anything after that. I haven't seen Django.
You haven't seen Django?
And I haven't seen the Samurai movie.
Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight. I did see a movie that he produced called 13 Assassins, which I truly enjoyed because it's just an ultra-violence version of... it's an ultra-violence take on Seven Samurai, which I wrote several film papers on. I'm a little bit obsessed with Akira Kurosawa. But I would have to say, so my top Tarantino movies, Kill Bill Volume 2. And I'm going to split them up because I feel like it's Kill Bill Volume 2, and then of course you have your Jackie Brown, Kill Bill Volume 1, 4 Rooms. Did you ever watch that one?
Mm-mm.
Four Rooms is fantastic. It's Quentin Tarantino's like sort of like an overall director of the movie, and then he has little directors directing 4 different stories about Tim Roth being a bellhop in a Los Angeles hotel and all of the hijinks that ensue. So you have Antonio Banderas' children being taken care of by Tim Roth while he goes to like a Hollywood party. You have Tim Roth ending up in a Coke binge showdown at the end. That's the Tarantino directed Room. I felt like that movie took a lot of beautiful risks that I would love to see more. I love that like weird independent movie period in the 90s that happened. I love how weird movies got. And that has to do with when I was a teenager. That's when I was a teenager, and I loved that just sort of like extra weird Kevin Smith at his best, kind of like, let's just get fucking weird indie movie wave that happened at that time. And Four Rooms was definitely in that wave. Let me see what else. And of course, like Pulp Fiction. I think Reservoir Dogs might be, I know everybody's like, I feel like Reservoir Dogs falls in the same category of people that like that movie as, what did Stewart just do?
Goodfellas.
Same thing.
People, there's a lot of college bros with Reservoir Dogs and Goodfellas posters up in their dorm room.
Yeah, definitely that guy's trying to finger bang me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't love Reservoir Dogs as much. I love everything leading up to the ultra-violence in Reservoir Dogs. I feel like that those are all, that's fascinating when you're getting into that. I feel like I'm missing one.
I'm looking at the filmography, and you are missing one film that he actually directed. It's part of Grindhouse, so you probably.
Oh yeah, the Grindhouse movies. Yeah.
Death Proof.
Fun. Not my favorite. That's fine.
So I have not seen Death Proof. I have not seen The Hateful Eight. I have not seen Jackie Brown.
You gotta see Jackie Brown.
I've heard.
You gotta see Jackie Brown.
I've heard wonderful things.
It's all about the South Bay. So you gotta see it with somebody who's like been around Long Beach and like San Pedro and like just down there in the South Bay. It's a beautiful, there's a few movies that if you love Los Angeles, if you visited Los Angeles, if you're planning on visiting Los Angeles, if you're in Los Angeles, Chinatown, Jackie Brown, Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I think Drive is a quintessential LA movie.
Drive. Valley Girl. Clueless. I feel like there's a whole genre of movies that are like beautiful Los Angeles movies, whether they're like the most campy side or the most gritty, serious side. I absolutely adore those movies. I also kind of feel like Tarantino and Spike Lee kind of converged in a weird like shock film around that time. I'm trying to think. I don't know. Can we talk about the female lead in that movie as well?
In Inglourious Basterds?
Yes.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Shoshana.
I have some issues.
Hit me with them.
Okay. I think she played it a bit quiet. I think her choice was a bit muted. And I think Tarantino, in the way that Brad Pitt always has a tendency, he has bro tendency, he'll fall into a bro role real hard. I feel like Tarantino writes every woman as Uma Thurman.
Well, I mean, they love each other, or he loves her.
I'm all for a muse. Especially because he hasn't like done the Hitchcock thing where he tried to like ruin her for no apparent reason. Like I love a muse. I get that, but I don't think she captured what he was going for in that character. I feel like she needed to be a little saucier, like a little more mature, because she'd been through such terrible trauma, and like her heart should be rode hard, put away wet. And you never see that in her face. You never see that in the way that she emotes. She's calculated, but she's still innocent. And I always wondered about that choice.
I think part of why she made that choice, and this is Monday morning film quarterbacking here, is that it makes, for me, it makes sense for the character to be playing that, because she does have to sort of double agent her way through making sure that everybody is in the theater when she can set it on fire for the premiere of this propaganda movie.
Right.
And I don't think
I do like that.
she's not a femme fatale.
Yes.
Not in the way that that Uma Thurman is in other Tarantino movies.
I would love to see a young Catherine Zeta-Jones. I know that sounds weird and does not work for casting, but something, yeah, or like even a ScarJo, even though she wasn't really around at that time.
She would have been good for this.
I think she would have been good for that.
I do think that this is it's real interesting. I do think probably Quentin Tarantino thinks that this is his best movie, which is the most it's the most obvious thing at the end.
If you listen to this, I love you, and we're allowed to disagree.
He looks right into the camera, or Aldo Rain looks right into the camera at the very end and says, "I think this might be my masterpiece," and that's the last cut of the whole movie. That's the last shot. Which
is one of the reasons where I was like, I audibly said, eating popcorn on a couch with. When that happened. And I was like, barf. You don't get to do that. You don't get to do that.
Right. It's one of those things that I think, my favorite Tarantino movie is Pulp Fiction. And I think that it's hard for me to look at someone's filmography. I was just talking about this on the episode of Stewart, where I think that Scorsese's best movie is Raging Bull. And I think it's really hard to look at someone's filmography and look at someone's body of work and go, they were so great early on and they just haven't been able to capture it since then, which I don't know how accurate that is. I think that there have been plenty of filmmakers who have cleared the bar from what they've done in earlier works. Like my favorite movie is There Will Be Blood. And it's Paul Thomas Anderson smack in the middle of his career.
Right.
And it's not his, a lot of people say that Boogie Nights is his best movie, and that's the first movie he ever made.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I actually think, what's the one with Adam Sandler?
Punch Drunk Love.
Punch Drunk Love is one of my favorite movies of all time. Again, I like weird. I'm like, make me uncomfortable. I love it.
You and Stewart are such an interesting cinematic couple, because he was in here just talking about, like, I want to not feel uncomfortable. I want to watch movies and enjoy them.
I have a gay husband who I call Soup Daddy. His name's Jared Gilbreth, and he's sometimes on 12 Questions with me. And he is my movie buddy because he also likes weird and uncomfortable. Like that's where we both live for uncomfortable. You don't always have to. The person you're with who compliments you emotionally might not be the person who compliments you artistically.
True.
If that makes any sense.
Oh, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and I do love what I like about both Scorsese and Paul Thomas Anderson is they make very strong choices in different trajectories. So if you look at a hidden gem of the Scorsese filmography is Bringing Out the Dead, starring Nicolas Cage.
Good old Nick Cage.
Man, that movie is so fucking weird and good. It is so weird. It is so good. I think that, and I'm sure some people would get on this podcast and argue that might be one of the worst movies Scorsese's ever made. But what I like that they both do is they make strong choices using their strengths as directors, but that are different here and there. You go in these different directions. Whereas Tarantino seemed to hit Inglourious Basterds and just keep going in this one trajectory of revenge film and ultraviolence. Or actually, I would say it probably started at Death Proof.
Probably.
It was the pats on the back from Death Proof that kind of got him in that direction of like, you know what, I'm just gonna. And I get it, they're fun and they're satisfying. And I do love the imagery. I did love the propaganda film. It's just I love it. If you're going to do satire, do it aggressively. Like, hit me in the face with it.
Like, Sorry to Bother You.
Like, Sorry to Bother You, exactly. Or as I call it, I Heart the Huckabees for people of color, therefore the stakes are real. So I think that what Inglourious Basterds does at the end, where they're literally burning a propaganda film alive with the people who created it. Mm-hmm. I think that's a beautiful bit of like, I love that imagery. I just wanted it to get there.
Right. Fair. I gotta watch this movie again.
I gotta, I've my life the last couple of weeks has just been a relay race that has been punctuated by moments of sleep. So I haven't really had a ton of time to revisit the film. But I would maybe we should get some popcorn and watch it together.
I'm not opposed to that plan.
Maybe you can change my mind. We could do a retraction episode if I change my mind.
Look, I don't, and I'm the kind of person, I love feeling uncomfortable in movies. I love movies that kind of push me to a limit and push me to a place. That's why I love Hereditary so much. That's why I love, what was one of my other favorites of this year? You Were Never Really Here. Great movie, bleak, unrelenting.
I didn't watch that one.
It's really, really great. Lynn Ramsey, one of the best directors currently working. Fantastic.
Okay, check it out.
But I am also totally down for a fun time at the movies trademark. And Inglourious Basterds, definitely a fun time at the movies.
See, if I'm going to do fun time at the movies, and this is where everyone's going to throw their phones across the room, I live for Pacific Rim. What a garbage movie, but I love it. I love it when Guillermo del Toro makes a movie so beautiful, but the dialogue is so bad. You just want to turn the talking down.
Right.
Just listen to the soundtrack and watch the explosions.
I mean, you're right. Characters with names like Stacker Pentecost.
But oh my god, in Pacific Rim 2 is somehow so much better and so much worse. It's like everything. Scott Eastwood's in it, and Scott Eastwood is maybe the worst actor on planet Earth.
Oh, Jesus.
Ever. It's fantastic.
Anna, what is a movie besides Pacific Rim that you'd recommend people watch instead of watching Inglourious Basterds, which you hate so much?
Oh, okay. Oh, God. Watch Yojimbo, Rashomon. Just basically, it's going to be hard to watch because they've taken a lot of anything by Toshiro Mifune. Take all those Japanese and Chinese filmmakers that Quentin Tarantino has openly. If you watch the director's commentary on a lot of his films, especially Kill Bill, he'll tell you exactly who he steals from. And because he's paying tribute. It's not really stealing. I'm really going hard on it, but
an homage.
It's an homage. And watch anything he nods to, and you'll see this beautiful world. That's usually a little more paced and a little more nuanced. And I think you'll learn a lot about filmmaking, because what he does that's so brilliant is he takes these beautiful movies from foreign markets, and he looks at them and he goes, "How can I do this?" And then he just does it really well, which I appreciate. I mean, we do that a lot in comedy. That's how you learn, is you look at something that somebody does and you're like, I want to add that, and then I want to make it original. And I appreciate that he goes in that direction. I really do.
All right. Anna, thank you for being on. You're such a great guest.
Thank you for having me.
Where can our listeners find you on the internet?
Oh my God, you can find me in a lot of places. You can find me at Anna V is Fun on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me at my website, AnnaValenzuela.com. You can find me on my other two podcasts, at the Brouhaha podcast, and that is not brew as in the brouhaha, the drink, Brouhaha as in witch. In Spanish.
That's on Unpops.
And yes. On Unpops, and you can also find 12 questions on Unpops.
We got a lot of Unpops listeners thanks to our good buddy Tom Ryman. Who introduced me to the Unpops world.
Unpops is, you know what? I love my little Unpops community, man.
Y'all are some solid fans.
It's a solid fan base. It's a fun, tight-knit group. They're the kind of people that will, send you gifts and chocolates, and, it's a beautiful family to be a part of, and I am just so grateful.
You can find me on the internet at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram, jlightcomedy.com for show dates. And please leave a review. Leave a rating.
Yeah, on iTunes.
On iTunes.
That's the one that matters.
I just want to be higher on the ranks. I'm not even on the top 200 TV and film podcasts. How am I below the Love Island Morning After podcast? Well, how am I below at least 10 Westworld recap podcasts? You don't need that many Westworld recap podcasts,
Actually,
folks.
You do if you're really into Westworld. We could do a whole thing about Westworld. I could uncork Westworld for you.
How am I below the Game of Thrones bevy of podcast universe?
How many reviews are you at?
I'm at 11 reviews.
Okay. No, this is important. So, guys, he's at 11 reviews. It's important to breach 100. It's very important to breach 100. Brouhaha's currently, I think, at 56 reviews, and when we get to 100, we're all going to eat a habanero on air.
Ooh.
What are you going to do at 100 views?
Man, I don't know. I feel like I should watch a movie that I hate. Maybe, Lawrence of Arabia is my most hated movie of all time.
What?
I hate Lawrence of
Are we
Arabia.
going to fight? Why do you hate that movie?
It's for another episode. You know what? We'll find out when we get to 100 reviews. How about that?
How about that? Oh my
All
God,
right.
can I be on that one? Can we
You
have a
can be-
panel of people who yell at you about it being wrong?
We'll swap it out.
Beautiful
We'll talk
movie.
about the... No, God, fuck no.
What?
Ugh. You can't hear any more about it until we get to 100
Okay,
reviews.
all right, guys. So get him to 100 views so you can hear how Jay is super duper wrong.
You guys... What have I set myself up for? Anna, thanks again for coming on.
No,
today.
thank you for having me.
This has been Blockbusting. Everybody, folks, go see something good for a change.